I'm Dawn Hill, host of Heart, Mind, and Purpose, a podcast where we explore what it means to live an aligned and wholehearted life. I am a professional counselor with over 25 years of experience and a deep love for meaningful conversation. I bring you honest reflections, soulful questions, and meaningful tools for managing life. Whether you're seeking clarity, connection, or simply a space to breathe, this podcast is here for you. Tune in weekly and join me on the journey.
Welcome to Heart, Mind, and Purpose, the podcast where we explore how our inner lives shape the way we love, connect, and grow. Hi, this is Paul Gramercy, producer of today's episode, where Dawn speaks to something many people quietly carry but rarely say out loud, the feeling that somehow they're behind in life, behind emotionally, behind financially, behind professionally, behind spiritually, or simply behind everyone else. But what if that feeling isn't actually failure? What if the slower seasons of life are not signs that something is wrong, but signs that something important is unfolding beneath the surface? In this episode, Dawn explores the pressure of comparison, the exhaustion of trying to keep up, the hidden work of healing and growth, and the truth that life is not simply about doing more, but about becoming more fully ourselves. So settle in with us for this thoughtful and encouraging conversation. You're not behind, you're becoming.
Welcome back to Heart, Mind, and Purpose. Today I want to talk to the person who quietly feels behind. Behind in life, behind emotionally, behind financially, behind professionally, behind spiritually, behind relationally, and maybe even behind in healing. And if we're honest, this feeling has become almost universal in today's world. We live in a culture constantly measuring progress. Social media shows us highlight reels. Artificial intelligence is accelerating everything around us. Workplaces are changing. Expectations are growing. And many people are quietly carrying the feeling of, I can't keep up. Maybe you felt that way lately, like you're skiing downhill faster than you can steer, like everyone else somehow got the map to life and you missed it. But today I want to offer a different perspective, a gentler one, a wiser one. Maybe you're not behind at all. Maybe you are becoming. So stay with me today as we talk about comparison, pressure, quiet growth, emotional exhaustion, healing, identity, and the sacred middle places of life where transformation often happens slowly and quietly. There is an overwhelming feeling in the world right now that says, move faster, do more, produce more, become more impressive. And if we're not careful, we will begin measuring our worth by productivity instead of humanity. Many people today are exhausted, not because they are lazy and not because they lack ambition, but because they are trying to keep up pace with impossible standards. Standards created by comparison, standards created by culture, and sometimes standards created by our own fear. And social media magnifies all of it. You open your phone and suddenly someone's launched a business, someone's bought a home, someone got married, someone has the perfect body, someone seems deeply fulfilled, someone appears spiritually enlightened, someone else has a morning routine that looks like Olympic-level organization. Meanwhile, you're just trying to remember where you left your coffee. And slowly, comparison begins to whisper, you should be further along by now. But comparison creates an illusion. It makes us believe life unfolds on one universal timeline. Maybe it's the woman who sees someone her age becoming a CEO while she's trying to recover from burnout, or the man watching old classmates post pictures of promotions and vacation while he's quietly caring for aging parent and wondering why life feels so heavy. Or the young mother still waking at night thinking, I love my children deeply, so why do I feel so lost sometimes? We hear things like this: graduate by this age, get married by this age, have children by this age, reach career success by this age, heal quickly, move on quickly, figure yourself out quickly. But real life rarely works that way. Life is not linear. Age is linear, but not life. Growth is not linear. Healing is not linear. And relationships are not linear. Careers are not linear. And faith is also not linear. Some seasons move quickly, and others move painfully slow. Some seasons are for building, others are for grieving, some others are for healing, and others are for waiting, or sometimes others are for letting go. And yet we often interpret slow seasons as failure. Slow does not mean broken. Think about physical therapy after an injury. Healing often looks painfully slow day to day. Tiny movements, small improvements, and relearning balance. Yet no one would expect someone to recover physically and to sprint out immediately. But emotionally, spiritually, and relationally, we often expect ourselves to bounce back overnight. Sometimes slow means deep. I think one of the most damaging things we do to ourselves is to confuse delay with defeat. Just because something hasn't happened yet does not mean it will never happen. Just because your life looks different from someone else's does not mean it's wrong. Sometimes the life that fits you best is built slowly, with more intention and purpose, more wisdom, and more depth. Do you know life is not about doing, it's about becoming? I came across this beautiful line recently. It says, "It's not all about doing, it's about becoming." And that stopped me, because many of us have spent years trying to perform our worth instead of becoming who we truly are. One writer described spending years chasing motivational speakers, seminars, books, accountability systems, trying desperately to become more successful, and then they realized something important. They were trying to run someone else's race. I think many people do this. We imitate what culture celebrates, we imitate what gets applause, and we imitate what appears successful. But sometimes all of that imitation slowly disconnects us from ourselves. There's a quote by psychologist Alfred Adler that says, "Discouragement often comes from comparison, while encouragement flows from contribution." So let me repeat that. Discouragement often comes from comparison, while encouragement flows from contribution. That's powerful if you stop and think about it. Author C.S. Lewis said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And that quote is powerful too, and it is so true. When we fall into comparison, we cannot find joy or contentment. Maybe the better question is not, am I doing enough? Maybe the better questions are, how can I live meaningfully? How can I contribute? Or how can I become more grounded, compassionate, authentic, emotionally healthy, and spiritually awake? And that is a very different way of living. And there is the quiet work nobody sees. One of the hardest things about becoming is that much of it happens invisibly. The world celebrates visible successes, promotions, followers, money, title, and recognition, but inner growth often looks very quiet. Sometimes growth looks like learning to say no, setting boundaries, asking for help, resting, starting over, grieving honestly, becoming less reactive, becoming more emotionally regulated, healing from trauma, letting go of perfection, learning self-worth, or discovering who you are apart from performance. Those things rarely get the applause. No one throws a party because you finally learned how to say no without apologizing. No one notices when you break a generational pattern. No one may see the courage it took to finally ask for help, or to get out of bed during depression, or to stop abandoning yourself just to keep other people comfortable. But that is real growth, and all of that matters deeply. Sometimes becoming looks like sitting in a therapist's office realizing I've spent years trying to return to an old version of myself instead of embracing who I'm becoming. And that's profound. Then there is the middle places of life. I think many people struggle most with the middle place. The middle places of life feel uncomfortable because they are unclear. The middle can look like any of the following: interviewing for jobs after a divorce, learning who you are after children leave home, rebuilding financially after a loss, or sitting in a therapist's office saying, "I don't even know who I am anymore." And honestly, that can feel terrifying. But sometimes clarity is born there, in the middle of uncertainty. You're no longer who you were, but you're not fully who you are becoming yet. And the middle can feel confusing, slow, lonely, humbling, uncertain, and especially for women. Many women carry this quiet belief, I should be further along by now, further along spiritually, professionally, financially, and relationally. But life interrupts timelines with things like caregiving, loss, burnout, parenthood, divorce, illness, financial strain, trauma, rebuilding, and reinvention. And those things change your pace, and they also create depth. Sometimes the people who took the scenic route become the wisest, most grounded, and compassionate people in the room. So here are some examples of becoming. Let me just give you a few everyday examples. Maybe becoming looks like the woman returning to school at 45, the man rebuilding his life after bankruptcy, the parent learning emotional regulation after growing up without it, the person grieving the life they thought they would have, the couple slowly rebuilding trust, the person quietly healing from anxiety or burnout, the adult child finally learning boundaries, the mother realizing motherhood changed her identity more deeply than expected, the person discovering success no longer means what it once did. And none of those stories are failures. They are stories of becoming. And then there is peace without performance. And this is a big one. One article described this beautifully. Peace is power without the noise. And I love that, because the world often glorifies the hustle and the visibility. But some of the strongest people are quietly building solid foundations away from the applause. And maybe one of the healthiest things we can do is stop treating life like a race. Your nervous system was not designed for endless comparison. We were never meant to wake up each morning and immediately absorb the accomplishments, opinions, appearances, and highlight reels of hundreds of people before we've even had our breakfast. And yet many people begin every day already feeling inadequate before their feet even hit the floor. You were not created to constantly measure your worth against everyone else's timeline. Sometimes emotional maturity means learning to be able to pause or breathe, slow down, and honor your own pace. And spiritually, I think many people wrestle with this too. Even faithful people sometimes quietly wonder, why does everyone else seem to be moving forward while I feel stuck? But throughout Scripture, we repeatedly see hidden seasons. David spent years in caves before becoming king. Moses spent years in the wilderness. Even Jesus spent many hidden years before public ministry. Scripture is actually filled with stories of preparation seasons that looked quiet from the outside but were deeply formative underneath. There are preparation seasons, waiting seasons, wilderness seasons, and refining seasons. The middle places do matter, because often it is in the hidden places that identity is formed. Not on the mountaintop, not during the applause, but during uncertainty. Maybe becoming requires trusting that meaning is forming even when clarity has not fully arrived yet. So maybe today it is not about asking yourself, how do I catch up? Maybe today is more about asking any or all of the following questions. What am I becoming? What no longer fits? What pace allows me to stay connected to myself? What quiet progress have I overlooked? Where have I confused delay with failure? Or what would change if I trusted my life was unfolding in its own time? And so if you need the reminder today, here it is. You are not behind because your life took detours. You are not behind because healing took longer. You are not behind because your journey looks different. You are not behind because you had to rebuild. And you are not behind because you are still figuring things out. You are becoming. And it can be like roots growing down deep underground before anything blooms above the surface. Some of the most important parts of your life may still quietly be taking shape where nobody else can see them yet. And becoming takes time. Listen carefully, because slow growth is still growth. Quiet healing is still healing, and small steps are still movement. Your life is not late, your story is not ruined, and your worth was never meant to be measured by speed. So breathe deeply today, release the pressure to perform, and remember, you are not behind, you are becoming. Thank you for spending time with me today on Heart, Mind, and Purpose. If this episode encouraged you, maybe share it with someone else who has quietly been carrying the feeling that they are falling behind. So remember, be gentle with yourself, stay grounded, and remember, growth is not always loud, and that does not make it any less meaningful. Until next time, may you be kind to your heart, clear in your mind, and grounded in your purpose. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Heart, Mind, and Purpose. If today's conversation encouraged you, consider sharing this episode with someone who may quietly feel like they're falling behind in life, healing, relationships, or purpose. And remember, growth is not always loud, healing is not always visible, and slower seasons are not wasted seasons. Sometimes the deepest transformation happens quietly beneath the surface. Until next time, take care of your heart, your mind, and your purpose. As always, you can find resources, listener handouts, and more at dawnmariehill.com/heart. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode as we keep exploring how the heart, the mind, and our sense of purpose all work together for a life well lived. If you have questions or comments, please contact Dawn at heartmindandpurpose.podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.